You are listening to Pivot Parenting, episode 207, Never in the Wrong Teens. Welcome to Pivot Parenting, the place where we recognize when your parental role needs to shift and how to do it. I'm your host and parenting expert, Heather Frazier. Okay, I'm so excited. Second week in a row of being on the Amazon bestseller list for How I Fix My Teen, going strong. I am so happy. I am hearing from people reading it that they love it and that it's making a huge difference and how much they enjoyed it, that they couldn't put it down. When was the last time you read a parenting book that you couldn't put down? Oh, last time you read my book, because that's how I wrote it. I wrote it to be interesting so that you don't want to put it down, so that you'll finish it, which means you'll learn what you need to learn. Crazy how that works. That's why it's a bestseller. You can order it, of course, on Amazon, which helps my bestseller status remain. You can get it on Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and of course, if you want my website. Spoiler alert, on my website, I may or may not offer my family connection course for a really cheap price when you order the book. So fun. But let's dive right into it. Never in the Wrong Teens. Have you met one of these? I have to say, when you see things on Instagram or hear other parents talking about teens who know everything, and they'll make jokes of like, isn't it so comforting to have such wisdom in your home that finally someone knows it all? And I have to say, our kids are pretty smart. And at least my kids, they know a lot of things that I don't know. Like when I went back to college a couple of years ago, my son, who was a freshman in high school, would sit down with me and help me with my math. I don't like math. And he was smarter than me in it. And he's a really great thinker. And he likes to think of philosophical things and randoms. We have some pretty interesting conversations. But our kids are really actually quite smart. And so I don't love the take of like the snarky, they just think they're so smart. Like that's not really my approach, because I do think that they're really smart and oftentimes smarter than us in certain areas, right? So I've broken today's episode down into 3 categories. The first one is what our teens may be doing when they think that they are never in the wrong or they know everything. The second topic is how we then respond to them that maybe isn't the most helpful approach. And the third one is the fix of what we can do that isn't working. There's a lot of behaviors that we do with our kids that feel like they require a lot of energy and give nothing back to us, like arguing or doing other things with them that feels very much like a hamster wheel, like we run and run and run, trying to win their approval, trying to get them to agree with us or do what we want. It takes so much energy on our part and yields very little fruit. And this is definitely one of them when we have an improper approach to when our kids are never in the wrong. Okay, I have 5 different common ways that I have seen how teens like to never be in the wrong. And this definitely is not an exhaustive list, just some really common ones. Number 1, I know. That's what they say. I need your room cleaned before you leave the house. I know. I need you to do your dishes or your chores. I know. I need you to make sure to be home by curfew, or I need you, like, We remind them of the rules or things that are our expectations of them. And they say, I know, or some version of that. Have you ever gotten that? And one of the lines I like to say is knowing and doing are two different things, which is true, right? Like I know that I need 8-9 hours of sleep every night, but I don't always do that because sometimes it's fun to scroll on my phone and do a little late night shopping, if you know what I mean. Or continue watching really juicy episodes of Wednesday or whatever with my husband. Sometimes that's just fun. And so I know, but I don't do. And all humans do this. Our teenagers are no exceptions. We do this, they do this, the people that live on the street do this. But this is the teens who know everything and they are never wrong. That's the first type, that I know. Number 2, there's a reason for everything, and it wasn't them. If my teacher would just do their job and turn in grades, if my manager weren't lame, if traffic weren't so bad, if this thing hadn't have happened, then yeah. So number 2, teens who would, but for others or the situation, then they just can't. So it's not their fault. They're not wrong. They didn't do anything. It's somebody else's fault. They're laying blame. Number 3, why is it a problem? Teens who know they're right and you're wrong. These kids like to argue about everything. Sometimes they can come off as arrogant, condescending, a little snotty. They think they're smarter than you. And maybe they are in some situations, maybe not. But they'll push on everything like, yeah, they'll just own whatever it is and that they are right and you are wrong. Number 4, that's not what happened. You didn't say that, or not exactly that. These are the ones that look for loopholes in rules or conversations of like, oh, I thought you meant it like this, when you're pretty sure they got the gist of the conversation of like not being on a date with just one person. They should be on a group. And they're like, well, we were with the group, but then we just drove separate and we made some stops. Or you didn't say that I couldn't go on a date like with just one person. You said it like I shouldn't, not that I couldn't. Or like they'll twist your words. This is teens who like to gaslight or make you question your experience of the situation or what you meant. They're trying to mess with you to see what they can potentially not have to take ownership of. And humans also like to do this a lot. Number 5, the freak out teens. Why are you getting mad at me? They flip and they make you look like the bad guy. But they're the only one overreacting and yelling. But they only see you as the problem. They get very defensive so that then you start apologizing and you start saying it's not a big deal because you got such a big reaction out of them that it's kind of shocking to you, and so you back down. Okay, those are the 5 most frequent. Let's talk about how parents tend to respond that may not be helpful when our kids are doing one of these 5 things. We might have to hash and rehash events. I like to call this getting in the weeds of like he said, she said. Of, well, that's not what you said. Well, that's what I meant. And what did you? And you're scrolling through text and you're like, see, I said it right here. And you're like fighting over the details when that's actually not really the problem. You may be trying to get them to see your perspective and agree with you. A lot of parents will say, well, she or he needs to take responsibility for their actions or their role in the situation. She's the bad guy. She's mad, mean, avoids us. So she needs to change. And so you have these conversations where you're trying to manipulate them into changing. Right? Like some of their behaviors of being right aren't really emotionally healthy. Like gaslighting, for example, or flipping the roles and making you the bad guy, even though they're the ones that broke the rule or were misbehaving or being mouthy or whatever. Those aren't emotionally healthy behaviors. But when we jump into trying to like manipulate them into seeing our role or them into agreeing with our perspective, sometimes we do similar things. A lot of times parents will trash talk the kid to others. So they'll call their mom or their friend and just me, talking poorly about their kid because their kid is driving them crazy. Parents can become passive aggressive. They can also just become passive. They can just roll over and play dead, and then their kid is ruling the roost. None of these are super helpful to our kids because it's not actually addressing the real problem. The real problem here is that there's not a problem, but everybody thinks there's a problem. What's going on is that our kids, for whatever reason, feel like it's dangerous to be wrong. And so they have to put up this defense of never being wrong. So either inadvertently or blatantly, we have trained them that it's bad to be wrong. We can do this in ways like getting mad at them when they mess up, being really grade focused rather than effort focused. You missed a question on the math test? What's wrong? We studied that over and over. Like, what happened? Instead of like, yeah, sometimes we miss questions. And did you figure out what you did wrong? Did you remember? Like, did you relearn it? Good job. Does that make sense? So in some way, either we or something else in their environment has taught them that being wrong is weak, that being wrong is vulnerable and it's dangerous to be vulnerable, that they will be mistreated or not well treated when they have faults or when they mess up. That's the number one driver as to why our teens are doing this. And it could be like just their friendships or something that they picked up on movies and media. Chances are it's a lot of little pieces from all of the places, right? Because we're also imperfect and we're not going to respond perfect every time, especially when they're little and they're spilling stuff and making messes and falling or doing things. And we don't like the mess or the discomfort of seeing them upset. And so we get after them because we don't want them to do that again. That's very human and it's okay. We've all done it. But what we want to do, and here's the third aspect of the podcast, the fix, is that we want to make peace with it's okay to be wrong. And we have to do this first. We have the fully developed adult brain. We have the knowledge that it's actually not a problem to be wrong. So when your kid calls you out on being wrong about something, which most teenagers are doing, just own it and laugh with them. Yeah, I totally was wrong. Thanks for correcting me. It's actually not that big of a deal. And if you show them that it's not that big of a deal to be wrong, you are modeling safety and vulnerability and love, unconditional love. So we don't want to hash and rehash. We don't want to be in the weeds of he said, she said, and all the fact checking. That's not necessary 9 times out of 10. Also, our kids don't need to understand or agree with us. Let me repeat that. It's okay for your kid to be upset with you, is what I'm saying. It's okay for them to not like the rules and not like the consequences. If you've discussed this and you're pretty sure that they understood it, follow through with it. Some kids will follow you around the house and try to continue talking and hashing out the details until they get what they want. That's really not necessary. Sometimes I just like to say, insert previous statement. Or I will repeat back to them what they think that they're right about and I'm wrong about. And I will say, it's an interesting difference of opinion. Because 9 times out of 10, all these things really are just opinion. There are very few facts in the world, and the facts remain even if people have opinions about them, right? Like gravity is a fact. And I choose to believe that gravity is created by the earth circling the sun, and there's a gravitational pull and it rotates. Some people would argue that the world is flat. I don't know how gravity works on that. I'm sure they have it worked out. But I see gravity as a fact, and they can argue that, and that's okay. It doesn't change whatever's happening to keep us all on this planet. And it's the same with our kids. They can argue and rehash. We don't have to get them to see our perspective. They don't have to agree with you, I promise. So how we do this is we just make peace with how they are being. I promise they can freak out. It's not a problem. They can try to get us to question how well we explained something, and we can still follow through with the rule. It's really not a problem. And we don't have to get in the weeds, and we don't have to play this is what I texted you, and this is at what time, and you know that, and you saw no, none of that. It's fine if they want to think they're right, because we think we're right. We're kind of doing the same thing at each other. But we can show how to do that in a mature way, which is making room for various opinions. So sure, as parents, let's own when we recognize that we were wrong. And when we really believe that we're right, we can stick with that and allow them to think the same thing. Really not a problem. This requires us embracing the awkward and the uncomfortable and the cold shoulder and just loving them anyway. When I was learning this skill, my kids would sometimes try to goad me in to reacting at them. And instead of crying or freaking out, I would just start laughing and I'd be like, you're so cute when you're mad at me. I just love you. And it's okay if you're mad at me. And this is still the rule. And this is still how it is. Because guess what? I'm the parent. And I know that doesn't make sense to you, but please trust my experience and my perspective in this situation. You know that it's not always the case. Sometimes we shift to your perspective because it's better. And this is not one of those times. And I love you. And you can be mad about it. And that's cool. Essentially, what's happening is we need to look at the underlying reason for why they're scared to be wrong. It's typically a sense of security and a sense of self. Am I okay if I'm wrong? Who am I if I'm wrong? Will I be safe if I am wrong? And that's what we want to address. So define your boundaries and stick with them. You knew what curfew was. You already used your one pass, and now you don't get the car tonight, and that's a bummer. You can get a ride, or we can pop popcorn and watch a movie here, but you knew that that's the way it was. So that's what we're doing. And then we want to recognize ego and fear. These are a parent's worst enemies. Did you know that it's okay for you to be wrong? And it's okay for your kid to think you're wrong when you're not. Ego tells you that that's not okay. But that's just us not recognizing our sense of self and our safety. We are 100% worthy of love. We are safe. Everything is going to be okay if we're wrong. And we have to show our kids what that looks like. So we don't want to parent from ego and fear. And of course, these are things that I address one-on-one with my clients. These are where we need to go into the details and why they have these beliefs. And so, of course, if you want to chat with me, I would love to chat with you. On my website, heatherfraser.com, there's a little apply to work with me button. Super simple. I ask 2 or 3 questions, and then you can schedule an appointment all right there. And we can go over the details of exactly your game plan to recognize your fears, recognize when ego is messing up your relationship or whatever is going on for you. Private coaching really is like a tailored article of clothing. It fits in all the right places. It's not too tight or snuggly or rubbing wrong in not good places. It's tailored just to you. And so that is always an option to you. And yeah, I have all those resources on my website. My book, scheduling some chat time with me. But that's what I have for you guys. I want you to really pay attention to what your kid is doing, how you've been responding to them inadvertently, and then pivot so that you're showing up with unconditional love. That really is the antidote for all of this, is unconditional love for you and for them. Because we are all wrong, like all the time. And it actually isn't a problem. And it's not a problem for people to recognize when we're wrong. When myself and my clients get to the point when I realized that being wrong wasn't a problem, it was so liberating. Because then it didn't matter if I messed up or who saw. It's like, yeah, sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm right. And to show that to our kids who are scared to be wrong, that is some powerful parenting. So I wish you luck. Grab some time with me if you want to talk, and we will see you next week.